Hey everyone, we're looking at notes 1-3, evaluating compositions of functions today. I just want to remind you before we begin that your name needs to be in the upper right hand corner in pen. So function composition, when we do function composition, you'll see these two types of notations. The first one is read f composed of g of x. And this circle here is not to be confused with the circle from 1-3 combinations. That circle was a closed circle. That's why we multiplied. Closed circle means multiply. This, however, is an open circle, and that means function composition. So again, I'll read it for you. This says f composed of g of x. While this notation is read f of g of x. So these two things mean the exact same thing. It's just writing it in a different way. And now I've told you before, I'll say it again just to remind you that I don't like the double parentheses because when I've used them in the past, they confuse students. So while this is read the same way and it means the same thing, it means f of g of x, I will be utilizing the brackets on the outside instead of the double parentheses, just so you know. Okay, so when you work these problems, you will evaluate the inside first, meaning you will work your way inside out. So start at the inside, work your way out. So let's go ahead and get started here. So here we have these three functions that are given to us, f of x, g of x, h of x, and it says evaluate the following. So f of x is a quadratic binomial, would you agree with me? While g of x is a linear monomial, single term, and h of x is a linear binomial, two terms, okay? So let's first find g of f of negative 4. So remember, work our way inside out. That means we're going to compute this f of negative 4 first. So I'm still going to keep the g, and remember I'm going to use brackets on the outside here. Okay, and then I'm going to write on the inside what is f of negative 4. So that means I'm going to come over here to the function f, and instead of writing x squared plus 3, okay, I'm going to write negative 4 squared plus 3 because, of course, I'm plugging in negative 4 into the function f where I see x. So this is the function f, but where I saw x, I plugged in negative 4. And then I'm just going to simply evaluate that. So I've got g of, and negative 4 squared is 16, so 16 plus 3. So g of 19. Okay, so then I'm going to take my g function, 4 times x, and I'm going to plug in where I see x, I'm going to plug in 19. So 4 times 19. So how I do that mentally is I round up to 20, and I think 4 times 20 is 80, but since I rounded up 1 and I multiplied by 4, I know I need to take 4 away from 80, so that'd be 76. So just like on 1-3, combinations, you need to drag down the problem for your final answer on composition as well. Okay, so there we are. Okay, number 2, so this is h composed of f of x, and remember that means the same thing as h of f of x. That means the same thing, okay, and I use the brackets, remember? So h of f of x, that's what we're finding. So f of x goes first, all right? F of x goes first. So what is f of x? F of x is x squared plus 3, okay? I don't have a value here. I don't have an input value. I don't have a value to plug in where I see x. I just simply leave it x. So there's nothing I can do here to simplify. There wasn't a value. Okay, so that's finished. I can't simplify anything, so therefore I plug this in because it's simplified as much as possible. I plug this into the function h. So the function h is negative 3x minus 2, but I'm going to plug in negative 3. Where I see x, I'm going to plug in x squared plus 3 and then minus 2. So then I'm going to clean this up, distribute, so negative 3x squared minus 9 minus 2. Remember, the negative 3 only distributes to what's in the parentheses. So then this would be negative 3x squared minus 11. Drag that down. So h composed of f of x. Make sure that you can tell that that's an open circle so the reader isn't confused thinking you're meaning multiply. Okay, so on number 3, I have G composed of H of 1/2. So again, that's G of H of 1/2. Okay, so that means the same thing as that. And remember, we start our way inside out. So we are going to find H of 1/2 first. So H is this guy, but where I see X, I'm plugging in 1/2. Okay, so G of -3 times 1/2 is -3/2. And then of course, since I have to have a common denominator, I'm gonna go ahead and shift this to -4/2 because I know that's the same as 2. Okay, and I have to have that common denominator. So this is G of -7/2. And then now that I've just got a single value here and I've simplified as much as possible, I'm going to find the G function, which is 4 times X, and where I see X, I'm plugging in -7/2. Now remember, this is like 4 over 1. So this 4 and this 2 can simplify because that's top to bottom. So this would become 2 and this would become 1. So then I'd have -14, wouldn't I? So then G composed of H of 1/2 equals -14. All right, now let's get to the tables and graphs. So the tables give some selected ordered pairs for functions f and g. Evaluate the following. So I've highlighted here, this is the G table, this is the F table. So the inputs for F and the outputs for F, the inputs for G and the outputs for G. So here on example number 4, part A, we're asked to find G of F of 2. So remember, that means we evaluate the inside first, we find F of 2 first. So G of, what is F of 2? So remember, come over here to the F table. Okay, the input, or X, is 2. Remember, that's where X goes. So F of 2, our X value is 2, our input's 2. What's our output? Our output would be 4. Okay, so F of 2 is 4. So we replace this F of 2 with 4, since that's what it equals. And then we simply just find G of 4. So what is G? Remember, here's our G function, and the input is 4. The input is 4, the output is 3. So G of F of 2 is equal to 3. So not terrible, just a whole lot of pointing and making sure you get the right have the right input and get the right output, correct? Okay, so here we've got F composed of G of 4. So F of G of 4, and oops, see, I did the double parentheses there, and I'm not fond of that. You can if you want, but I like to use the brackets. Okay, so that means find G of 4 first. So F of, what is G of 4? So of course I'm going to come over here to G, and G of 4 is 3. Okay, so then I've got to find F of 3. This is F. F of 3 is 6. That's it. Make sure that's an open circle. I don't think that's too bad, is it? As long as you're paying attention to where you're going, it shouldn't be terrible. Okay, so the graphs of F and G are given. Find the following. Okay, so I highlighted the graph of F. That way you can distinguish it from G. Okay, so F is this kind of V-looking graph, and then G is that linear graph. Okay, so F of G of 0. Again, I work my way inside out. So G of 0. So remember, 0 is the input, and remember, input means X. So X value of 0, okay, so that's here. The X value of 0 is here, and I'm looking for the G graph. The G graph is the linear graph. That's this dude, right? That's this guy. That's G. So when X is 0 on G, what's the output? What's the Y value? It's -2, okay? So that means I'm finding F of -2, okay? Because G of 0 was -2, so I replace g of 0 with -2. So now I need to find f of -2. So remember, -2 is my input, that's my x value, and I want the f graph, so that's the highlighted graph. So I find -2 on the x-axis, I find the f graph, and then I look for my output, which is 2. So the answer is 2. F of g of 0 equals 2. All right, let's do one more for practice. All right. Oh, no, I have 2 more, I'm sorry. So this is g composed of f of 4, so g of f of 4, right? G of f of 4, that's what that means. So first find f of 4. Okay, so remember, 4 is the x value, f is the function I want. So that's the yellow one. So I come up here to the f graph. When my input is 4, what's my output? What's my y? It's 4. So I replace f of 4 with 4. And then I need to find g of 4. So again, my input is 4. I want the g graph, that's here. And my output then is 6. My y value is 6. All right, last one. So g composed of f of 1, so in other words, g of f of 1. Okay, so g of, what is f of 1? Remember, work our way inside out. So 1 is the input, so that's our x-axis. So I go on the input, on the x-axis where I see 1, and I want the f graph. The f graph is the yellow graph, so that's this guy. So when my x value is 1, what's my y value? It's also 1. Okay, and then I need to find g of 1. So here I am at the input of 1, and I want the g graph this time, so that's this straight line, so that's this point right here. What's my output here? What's my y value of my coordinate? It's 0. So g composed of f of 1 equals 0.